What's good? It's your boy Czar, All Rights Reserved. I'm going to do analysis. Here we go, off the rip. Shout out to Fader Films, the people that produced it. The production was well done. Props to all of that. Let me also say this, addressing the first part. He said his mission was to motivate others, and I agree. It's also to lead others a certain way. And the negativity, I think, comes from the fact they felt you were leading them down a path. The moment you said your movement, you don't have fans, you got a cult, is the moment the negativity begins. Because in history, anybody that had a cult, from Charles Manson to everybody, was leading their people who was up under them to death. Understand, cult has a certain meaning, sir. And that was the problem that a lot of different people in production were saying, that you were leading them a certain way. That's why they weren't rocking with you. And that's why the judge was coming at you in the Geneva case. So bottom line, they felt that you were giving a negative message and leading these kids down a road to death. And that was the analogy, that the type of, let's say, aura the judge was putting out and addressing you on. That's a fact. Now, the thing was, he mentioned about paranoia. And my thing is, there is no paranoia in Christ. So I noticed you took the Lord's name in vain a lot, sir. And I feel bad because doing that is what led you to the point where, you know, we all lost you. When you're taking the Lord's name in vain and pushing that type of thing, you're going to get that type of ending. When you're not referencing the Lord Jesus Christ and you're continually bashing him, using his name in vain, you go a certain direction. That's an objective view, because it's a fact. That's what happens. This is me as an older male saying this. If you are younger, it's cool that you rock with him, but learn who God is before you go in life, because you get confused. And that's why it sounded so confusing that he had all this recognition, all this support, but he was paranoid and all this other stuff. And it was a lot of negative attention around him. Now, to the mother, it's about teaching your son, okay? Okay, let me tell you, my mother taught me. My mother nursed my knowledge. I wasn't just going back and forth in life and my mother was like, do what you want. No, she pushed me the right direction. I couldn't even go outside unless I grew my mind. I had to prove to her that I gained knowledge in order for me to step foot outside, to feel what the temperature was. I couldn't just step outside. She made situations for me to grow as a man. And I was just young. I was a boy. But she put me in that predicament. And because of that, it made me greater. It made me stronger. It made me more positive. It made me able to see the God and the devil in every situation. You're either moving with one or the other. There's no in between. Okay, and I want to say Pitchfork, I'm going to get to you later. But Pitchfork, I don't think you were behind X like you claim you were. I read a lot of the articles you guys put out, and I addressed you earlier on this channel, which I'll go through my channel things on some other day to address the wrongs and rights. Because I have questions that weren't answered, that you did in this thing and still didn't answer. That's confusing. But the negativity was around him at an expedient rate. Okay? Now, here's the thing that's confusing. You said he stayed with family because of you doing what? Because he chose to. He left home. He wasn't pushed out. Ma'am, understand, I'm going to go through the details that I address. I address you on this. That's not true. Ma'am, he was sent over there because he needed guidance and no one was watching him. And when I'm confused, usually a single mother, as you were at that time, she has a reasoning to go into work. Ma'am, you never once said your occupation. Your occupation was the reason towards the end of the movie he talked about getting in a fight, biting random men, fighting random men. That was your fault. You had random men around while you were chasing your dream, doing what? All right, let me put it out there, ma'am. Were you a nurse? Were you a CNA? Or were you an exotic dancer? Which one? Because you never even admitted that. Matter of fact, that was the first thing people hit me up saying. Dog, they're like, she never said she was a stripper. Ma'am, he addressed that on many different occasions, not doing with a movie or nothing. It was your occupation that led him to get in a lot of drama with random, strange, older men. He was a little boy fighting older men because of the occupation you took on. That's a fact. That's not, let's say that's not objective. That is a fact. That's what you did. And that led him down a dark path, having to come to a situation fighting random older men to protect his mother. You put him in that situation. You weren't a mother working a normal job for your son to grow from. He was watching his mom work and deal with strange men trying to fight and beat her up. That's what he dealt with. You never said that in the movie. A lot of people were hitting me up about that first and foremost. Just want you to know that. Okay? And that was you talking about him wanting to go to the hood with your moms. Come on, man. And then understand, your mom was picking him up from the studio. She was swinging around keeping him. Now, respectfully, she had to be a little older because of the age of you. She couldn't keep up with what he was doing, ma'am. She's older. She's only doing as best she can. And she did an excellent job. Okay? So don't make it seem like he had no guidance. Your mom was the perfect guidance for him. She did her best. She did everything she could. That's a fact. Okay? Now, let me say this. One thing in prison, ma'am, that didn't come up. There was a person on a phone. I had the recording of it. I'm not going to release it because I don't know if I have the right to. But on a call, there's a recording where one of his friends is giving him an incantation, which is black magic, to do in order for him to get out of prison. Or it's supposed to enhance the chance. He did it. He was quoting it. I have the recording of him quoting it back on the jail phone that the cops had. Come on. Okay. Now, one thing I'm confused about. His father spent 10 years in prison, and from the age of when he did. But he's saying when he got out, it wasn't true what you were saying about him not wanting to be around. He was put in a position where he could not be around. And it was because of situations, I guess it was growing wealth or whatever. He felt like he was being kept away from his son. And that's even when he did what he did and he was trying to keep up with him. I wish he was around more because, you know, as a boy, it helps to have a man around to lead you. That's just being honest and me knowing what having a man around did for me. So being real with you, it makes a difference in your life as a young boy having your father around. It does. Okay? Now, here's the thing. You said he went to counseling and different things, and you said it wasn't really helping, man. It wasn't helping because he was too busy fighting the men you had showing up whenever, whatever situation that he talked about towards the end of the movie. He was constantly fighting men off of you because they were beating you up, attacking you. Now, I don't know if this is a situation of an alleged pimp, or I don't know if it's about an alleged just you dealing with a man, but you don't go into detail on that. But that is what you created around him. That's not a lie. That's what he talked about in the movie. Come on now. You need to put more time into that to let it show. This little boy was standing up as a man against other men I had around that was trying to physically assault me. That's what he was dealing with. That made him wild because it took him to another level where he said, I got to be some type of brawler, not only to protect my mother, but to deal with other situations we're going to get to shortly. Now, my thing right this, another thing, and this is to the Guardians that was dealing with Ski Mask too. One thing that made me kind of mad is that they felt like the type of energy you were putting on these guys was the fact that they were horrible kids. He said his parents and you made John feel like they were horrible kids. That's bad parenting. You made them feel like horrible kids because they had nothing. They didn't have anything. You didn't even teach them work ethic. They had to figure out how to get money on their own. That's, i.e., why they're robbing, invading houses, because they're not being led the right way. And that's why I said I wish the father was there. He would have said, son, you're going to go to jail. You're going to go to prison. That's what a father would have did. And that's a very important thing to bring up because that's something he didn't have. Okay? Now, that's something he didn't have. And now I want to say this too. Leading to that. Now, even Ski Mask and them talked about how he was sleeping. They were like sleeping in the street, sleeping in the car. Ma'am, a good parent makes sure that doesn't happen. How would they end up doing that and they were being led the right way? They didn't have good guidance. They didn't have a solid foundation of a guardian or adult to see, to know how to look, how to act, how to behave, what to do, when to do it, how to work for everything they get. Honestly, it makes sense, because if you're doing, and if you're allegedly, and this is what came out, you never denied it. You're not even speaking on it. You never denied it. You never denied being an exotic dancer. That's what led them mentally to a stage of fighting, thinking streetwise, because they're seeing you in situations being violated and he's protecting you. So he went through it. He was going through it as a young teen, dealing with grown men coming and visiting his mom. When was it that he fought these men off? He brought it up. You never brought that up. When was he fighting these men off for you? And why? What were they doing that he had to bite them in the stomach? All type of stuff. These are his words. Why? What type of parenting were you doing? Man, they were jugging. When he went and got his face tats, man, as a mother, you didn't look at him and say, son, you got these face tats. What are you doing? But towards the end of the documentary, they talk about how hard it was for him to get a job and live a normal life with face tats. Man, he would have never been at that point with the right guidance to do the right things. If he was spending time on work ethic and working hard at a job, he wouldn't have had time to get face tats and think of invading, robbing in order to make a living. Because they said you guys weren't helping him. Ski Mask even said he wasn't getting help on his side. He had no financial help. So what were you doing with the money, man? Even then you were funny with the money. You were funny with the money when he was a kid. Now it comes out, all this other stuff. Now his brother, whoever else, is claiming you're being funny with the money he deserves. It's a repeat. It's repeating actions that prove true, because you were doing it when he was a kid. If you were doing it when he was a kid, obviously you never stopped, because he kept doing the things he needed to do to get finance. When did, as an adult, did you say, son, you need to work hard? Son, you earn money this way. Son, if you're hustling that way that people allegedly claim you were, and this isn't people locally, this is me reaching out to the islands where you were, and they're describing you as a person. Reaching out to the islands you're from, and they know you're doing extra stuff on Jamaican websites. How is that? If it's a lie, how are these Jamaican people from these websites able to tell me this in detail? I mean, they were telling me it. They're telling me stuff I don't even want to mention. Ma'am, how? Because that's not true. He was put in a position to be an adult before he was even an adult, just to get a sandwich. Like, really, for real. How could he help it if he never learned any different or had an adult around to lead him the right way? That's confusing. What type of influence did he have? And they felt like they were horrible kids. They were kids nonetheless. They felt horrible. Like their family thought they were a horrible kid. Where would they get that analogy from? It had to be they were going through horrible situations. Ma'am, he was 16, 17 going through this. And that leads me to this part. Okay? He said they were sleeping in cars, sleeping on the street. Geneva even said he was sleeping in the lobby, being with her, keeping her company. He would not have been doing that if you led him the right way or taught him, son, you could count on me. Where were you when he was doing that? I'm trying to figure that out, because that leads me to what they were telling me. They were telling me you were out all times of night, sometimes not even showing up. You say he left on his own. I say he left to survive and live with your mom because he could get a hot meal somewhere and some guidance because your mom stepped up and did it. You can't say that's his fault. He didn't do nothing. He's young. He's a kid. 15, 16. He don't know what to do if he's not coached up. That was bad. That's crazy. He out all times past his curfew. You said he wasn't abiding by the rules. What rules, ma'am? What rules wasn't he abiding by? What rules did you hold him to? What rules could you hold him to doing what you're doing? And that's what the father even was saying. What is she talking about? Because he didn't like that either. This is what they're saying. So he's wrong, he's lying, and Ja's lying. This was in your movie. He said it. So they're both lying? Come on, man. This was a mother that needed to step up differently, man. I wish you did it different. Doing it with the current brother, please do it different. Be by and be there when he needs you. Come on, financially respond to him and do what he needs. Not worrying about a mansion and a fancy car. Come on. They're kids. What in the world? What in the world? You for real? Ma'am. Now, this brings me to this point. Because then, after this, it gets to the point where Coolie Cut comes on, okay? Coolie Cut. What happened with the Jocelyn Flores thing? What happened with that? Sir, we know you were the last one driving her away. You didn't, the plaque was in the back for the song, but what happened to mentioning Jocelyn Flores? What happened with that? Because allegedly, you were the one that drove her from the party. So X had no knowledge of what happened. But the cop said he found her strangled in a hotel room. What happened with that? Because allegedly, you were the one that drove her to her place she needed to be. She was an underage girl. What happened? She was Jase's age. What happened with that? There is no talk about that. Her family's still confused. Do it for her family, sir. What happened? Like, you speak and sound well educated. What happened with that? That still was never answered. What was going on with her? How was she strangled in a hotel room? Sir, when you allegedly drove her away from the house, that was put on it. That was tagged on his name. You know that's still hanging on his head. They're still looking at him. Even though it's silent, their family's still looking at him being responsible. Sir, what happened? That's still on his name. Still not cleared up. That's still holding him hostage. Do you know that messed up business for him? You don't even know that, do you? You don't care, though, because he's not here. But that messed up business for him. Very badly. Dealing with business with family, different people, that was messing it up. And that's a fact. This brings us into the next point, where Bruno starts talking about. He admitted he was a porn star. Cool. He admitted that. And at that time, he even said, to his knowledge, he was living with his grandmother. If he would think that, ma'am, how would that be that you were there for him and taking care of him? If his friends thought he was living with his grandmother, where would you get off saying, oh, no, he wasn't following rules? Whose rules? The mother didn't say that. Your mother's rules? Whose rules? I'm trying to figure that out. I'm confused because you said you were taking care of him. No, that wonderful woman took care of him. God bless her. She took care of him. That's the truth. She was taking care of him, not other people. Besides Bruno and Solomon, she was the one taking care of him. Then, honestly, objectively, Coolie Cut was trying to lead him down the right path. But you weren't really doing too much to help that. That's what I get from the movie, in my opinion. Because when all these people come on and speak, it's speaking from the perspective without you in the picture, which is confusing if he's not following your rules. I'm confused at that. I'm still confused. Now, okay. Now, the beating people up on camera, you know, that's sad. I'm glad he didn't get charged with that. Because, sir, you get caught with assault. You would have been 20 to life before you touched Geneva. Like, if they really want to charge you, because I don't know if you guys, sometimes I wonder if they ever been arrested. Sir, I've been in before. I had cuffs on. It's like you guys never been arrested. Because it's like, y'all don't think to say, well, dang, for assault, I can get 15 years. I can get 25 years. That's a fact. Especially if the person has damage after you do what you do. Sir, you would be doing a decade for doing that type of stuff. That's confusing. He even said he was living with his grandmother. Respect to the fact, now I see it was because of Ski Mask and Bruno that he even made it out of his situation alive to make it to the age to say he's above 18. Now, I got to keep it real. To say he was over 18 involved in some of those videos that were sexually explicit, I don't know, sir. I don't know. The timeline don't make sense to say he was 18 and older. That don't make sense. Looking at the timeline, if people are smart, even looking at the video, it don't make sense to say he's 18 and older. Sir, he wasn't 18 until after he started really dealing with things happening, being in the studio more. He was 16, 17 starting the studio. And even in the video around that time, at the age when it pops up, it didn't say 18 at that time right away when he was interacting with you. Now that's questionable, but that's up for grabs. He could have been, but I don't know about that, sir. Even when I went through his videos, I understand those videos y'all made that ain't public. I got them. I got them. I don't think he looks 18 to me. It's subjective. Okay. That's what you say. He was sleeping in the lobby with Geneva. And you thought that there was an obsession factor on her part. And I get that. I can understand that. I feel that. And he told him that's not healthy. That's good information, sir. Because it's not. He was talking about hearing voices and different things. He was dealing with some medical things that needed more attention, that was more related to a parental figure like a mother. You couldn't make him go to a hospital, sir. You didn't have that power. So I get that. You couldn't force him. And that's the truth. He said he heard demons talking and he was asking them questions. I believe that was real. Because you understand, in this world, you can really interact with demons. But what I'm telling you is, don't be surprised. They're here to trick you. Those demons are here to trick you. Let me tell you something real quick. And, let me tell you something. Now, this is what I didn't say. When I had my video on and was preaching to y'all with the scripture and stuff, don't you know that 666 popped up on my phone calling me? That's that sound you hear when I'm talking. It's not a game. There really is demons and different things like that. But here's the thing. They're not stronger than God. They're not stronger than God. Understand that. They pale in comparison. They're a stepping stone. Now, here's my thing here we're going to get into. Now, a lot of karma talk is done. No, it's not karma. Get it straight. Biblically, it's not karma. It's called judgment. Judgment. You're judged off of everything you do. Just like the judge sat before him and hit that gavel. That's what God does to you and me and her and him and him and him and her and her and her. It's judgment. You're judged for the things you do, secret and known. You conspire behind the scenes. God says, I will punish you openly. You conspire in secret, plot on people. He'll handle you publicly for the evil you do. And I'll give you the scripture when I finish everything. We're going to talk about that stuff. Okay? Now, there's something else. I want to give props to Cade and Mrs. Lee for trying to intervene and stop the drama between Geneva and X. That was a very instrumental part of changing who he was. Because they were telling him, yo, you can't do this. She was walking to Geneva like, yo, you got to do better. These two, Cade and Miss Lee, they were probably the best influence of an adult he had in his life. I got to be honest. I got to keep it real. I thank God for you guys being there. If you guys weren't there, it would have been way worse for what he had to face. Y'all two did it. It wasn't some parent. No, it was y'all. Thank God for y'all. He was dealing with so much. Now, he was fighting a lot. And Solomon was trying to figure out how to help him get control of it. In Empire Distribution, that gentleman was trying to help him get his musical career off the ground. Along with Solomon. And that's what kept him focused. So they were a very strong part in having to understand the value of partnership. He knew business needed partnership. He was smart. And they helped him maintain that. Okay? Got to give props to that. And they became the formula. And let me say something too. He said he went from meek to being something else. Sir, that was a very detrimental part. The moment you did that, that led to the beginning of the end. Okay? Meek shall inherit the earth. Come on. Being meek and everything, that is what would have maintained him. That's a fact. That would have maintained his character, maintained everything about his career. And Empire, it seems, with that guy, helped them try and do that. I got to give props to that. They tried. Okay? They were trying. Doing their best. Now, let's see. Now, at that time, the thing I have a problem with, Cleo, the moment he thought the villain formula was working, as a mother, you should have stepped in. Son, you don't have to be a villain. It shouldn't have had to take Empire to tell him that. You should have said that. Sir, you don't got to be a villain to be successful. You need to teach a kid and lead them the way they should be led. God holds you accountable, man. He holds you accountable. These other people, they're not held accountable. You are. He thinks being a villain was profitable. You were supposed to teach him, no, be you. Be kind. Be good. Be smart. Be very skillful. You have the talent. You needed to tell him that. But Empire had to tell him. They became his parent. They became his parent. That's not good. Okay? That's not a good thing. Now, understand this. The domestic abuse charges, Geneva. Yes, it did mess stuff up. But if you claim what you claim is true, you weren't wrong for speaking about it. You're not wrong for speaking up. Anybody getting abused, you're not wrong for speaking up. How is that wrong? Because it messed with a situation, ma'am. You're not supposed to stay there getting hurt. You got to speak up when you feel like you're in danger. You have to. He was traumatized. That's something that they saw. He was traumatized from his childhood, which he would have been. Anybody would have been. Man. Now, Geneva, can you please announce to everybody, who's this ex that you called to help you? I believe that's very crucial to a lot that started happening. Because you're telling me this ex drove you to the police station and all that stuff with their mother. But my thing is, after the fact, did someone want revenge for what happened to you? Did you ever speak about that? You never did. You never did. You didn't even say who the ex was. Because I think that's instrumental in a lot of details that happened to him that no one's speaking about. You never mentioned who this was. Yet, this person seen you at your worst moment afterwards. But also, X claims he didn't beat you up. So, ma'am, are you going to say who really did that to you? Or are you going to say who helped do it? At one point, I'm not saying he didn't. If you say it's true, it's true. But who else? Because at one point, he wasn't around you. And when he seen you, you were beat up. Who did that? Allegedly, you got swooped by a bunch of girls. Was that true? Or did something else happen? Because I know abuse was going on with other people in other scenarios. Did one of them do it? Can you please speak up? Did one of them do it? You got to be honest about that. He's not here. You got to be honest. Now, understand this. It also alleged he was introduced to acid. Understand. Let me tell you something about acid. Taking 2 hits of acid. You are legally and clinically insane. If a person takes at least 2 hits of acid, you're clinically and legally insane. Want to know why? Because one of those hits can burn a hole in your brain. Did he ever have his brain examined? It can burn a hole in your brain. I have friends that dealt with this that I know of. It can really mess your brain up. So who was he getting that from? It can really mess you up. That's not a normal thing people do. You don't just wake up and say, let me get this hit of acid. Nobody does that. Come on. That made no sense. That was crazy. Because acid makes you legally insane. And they tell you that in any medical setting. Now, one thing he had to figure out. There's more respect and love than fear. Cleo, you couldn't teach him that? After everything you were going through, he was dealing with. You couldn't step up and say, son, you got to act with love. That would have prevented the Geneva thing. He was thinking that fear is how you manage love, not love managing love. Fearing me is how people respect me. Ma'am, that's not the way to go. That's bad teaching. You should have been all over that. Because you got to know that stuff. You had to see that. You had to know something. There's no way he thought fear was better to influence love than using love to influence love. That was crazy. Ma'am, you got to teach that. That's why I said, if you were actually there, he would have learned that. From somebody, he would have learned that. He had friends his age trying to learn from him. He didn't have the support of an adult teaching him. That was not good. Come on, man. Cleo, you should have been saying that. Let me say this too. I'm starting to realize, even though members only was led by X, the true leadership, I got to give props to Base Santana. You were a true leader, I gotta say. from you speaking and things you tried to do, you were a true leader trying to lead one of your musical people in your crew to the right route. I got to give you those props. I'm going to give people their props. I'm real. Like, I got to keep it real. You really were a huge implementation of making him better. I'm going to give you that. I got to be honest. Now, one thing I got to say, when he started saying his fans were cults and not they were part of his cult, that's a big directional shift to the bad and wrong direction. Because cults lead their people to death. Look at every person that led a cult in history. They ended up killing their followers. That's a fact. They don't lead a cult and everybody's A-okay. It's not really a cult then. A cult knowledge and occult actions lead people to death because it's using symbols and things that are demon-based, demonology, and very demonic. It's a demonic thing. It leads people to death. That's not the right way. That's a bad thing. And you guys didn't provide the logic to help him supersede that. That's my problem. All these things could have easily been changed by an adult with knowledge that cared, leading him and showing him the right way and right things to do. And I feel like that's where his father was pissed off, that he was kept out of the way and prevented from doing that. Allegedly, that's what it seems like he's saying, that he was prevented from leading his son the right way. Sir, speak anytime if I'm wrong. Let them know. If you weren't trying to lead your son the right way, tell me. Because it looked like you were. Because you knew what prison felt like. You didn't want him to go to prison. Obviously. So I think that there's confusion there for a lot of people. His father was there trying to lead him. Something was preventing him. Something was preventing him from being the dad that his son needed. And he was frustrated and mad about it when you released this documentary. Because you made it seem like he was useless and didn't care. But he really did. But there was a situation you presented that stopped him from doing it. Sir, if I'm lying, tell me. I'll give all the props to Cleo and tell her that she's correct. That you were not there to help or influence and you didn't care. Because that's what she made it seem like. So that's what I'm getting from her speaking of you, sir. Just what I'm getting from her words. Okay? Now understand, they were talking about a Baker Act. Now dealing with that, Solomon says he didn't know about these things and what was leading X down that path. He didn't want him to do that. Solomon admitted he did everything he could to take him away from that. Even in the documentary when he's talking, he's inspiring X the right things. Solomon was around telling him the right things. I can't lie. But the thing was, he didn't have enough people backing him to do this. I will say that. If he had more Solomons around saying the things Solomon was saying in the documentary, he might have been on the right path, but he didn't. And that's problematic. It's not fair. And it put him in a bad situation. And Empire was trying to tell him, you got it. Playing the villain and trying to run that role, it's not going to help you supersede to grow your community the right direction. They were telling him right. I can't lie. Empire was keeping it real with him. You can't. Empire ain't no joke. They weren't lying. If that guy was telling him that, he was telling him right. Come on, man. Can't lie about that. Now, he said Geneva was already bruised at Bruno's house and she got jumped by girls or something like that. But they were making it seem like X was doing it. And that was bothering him. Was that true? Is that a lie, guys? Was he actually doing it? And what he's saying a lie? He said she was already bruised. Was he lying? He said she was already beat up and bruised when he got there and seen her for the second time. Is that true? Come on. So what was actually happening in Geneva? Now, one criticism I have about this movie too, there wasn't enough time on Genesis. Genesis is the baby mother. There should have been more focus on what Genesis was doing. She should have had more airtime than that little bit of time as the baby mother. Okay? Now, these are just a light touch on everything. My next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go through each video for detail and address per se, because there's stuff I brought up you never responded to. You never responded. Now, this was me lightly and objectively touching on this movie in the documentary. Put your comments down below. Hit that like button, subscribe, because I'm about to go through it from the videos and information that I got when I was going through it initially, and she had no answer or response. They just was hating in the comments. And I can't wait, because you guys are going to be able to read the comments and see the things they said in response. None of it's erased. If they're playing with the comments, it's because they were playing with a higher power, trying to mess with what we were doing at that time. Everybody here can vouch for it. Let me know. Hit that like button. Subscribe for the next part. This is my first part. All rights reserved.